see Swamiji? Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Ajnanatamidandhasya Jnana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Tvameva Mada cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravinam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Amriteshwari Ma Tvameva Sarvam Amriteshwari Ma Tvameva Sarvam Amriteshwari Ma Om Amriteshwari Nama. We'll begin with a short meditation. Kindly sit straight. Make sure your vertebral column, your spinal column is erect. And slowly close your eyes. Try to relax all parts of your body. And if there is any tension, any part of your body, release it by just focusing on that particular part. And feel complete relaxation. And now we'll chant Om 3 times, and as we chant Om, imagine the sound of Om to arise from your navel area and visualize the sound traveling upwards along your spinal column. Now going to take a deep breath. Feeling the reverberations of Om, both inside and all around you. Feel the quietness of the mind, lesser thoughts in you, disturbing you. As the mind settles down, slowly start observing your breath, breathing normally but with full awareness of each and every inhalation and exhalation that occurs through your body. Follow each and breath as it comes into your body, traveling along your throat into the lungs. And then when you breathe out, follow the breath going out of your lungs, coming out through the tip of your nose. And now as you breathe in, chant the syllable of the mantra Ma silently along with your in-breath. And Om when you breathe out. So Ma when you breathe in and Om when you breathe out. And as you breathe in, chanting Ma, also feel that you're being filled with that divine love. And when you breathe out, chanting Om, imagine you're being filled with the divine light. So Ma, when you breathe in, divine love, and Om, when you breathe out, divine light. And continue like this for some time. Ma Om Ma Om Ma Om. Continue for some more time. Slowly and slowly the reverberations of Ma and Om becomes more and more subtler. You can just feel the energy, Ma and Om. As the mind settles down and is filled with the divine love and light, feel the expansion of the mind. Mind overflows with joy, with bliss. and the light. Now as we chant the Loka Samasta, imagine either the white flowers falling on everyone in this world, or you can just imagine a ray of light going out from your heart to all the beings, which makes them more peaceful, more content, more blissful, and more compassionate. So let's chant Loka Samasta together 9 times. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. 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 Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. The sound or the properties, just look at the sound properties and see if you go to the settings and see if you have the external mic or is it? Yes. Om Dhyayamo Dhavalavagundanavadim Tejo Mayim Naishtikim Snigdha Panga Vilokinim Bhagavatim Mandasmidashri Mukhim Valsalyamritavarshinim Sumadhuram Sankirtanalapinim Shamangim Madhusikta Suktim Amritanandatmikam Ishwarim. Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Varyandam Vande Guru Parambaram. Srude Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam. Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Lokashankaram. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Bhadarayanam. Sutrabhashya Kridau Vande Bhagavandau Punah Punaha. Ishwarau Gururakmedi Murti Bheda Vibhagini Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshina Murtaye Namah. Om Amriteshwarye Namah. Om Amriteshwarye Namah. Om Amriteshwarye Namah. In the last session, we were discussing about when Lord Vyasa was sad and he could not understand the reason of his sadness. Even after finishing codifying the Vedas, then he wrote the Mahabharata. And all the the epics. So after that, he was feeling, still he was not feeling in one sense we cannot say sad, because Mahatmas like Vyasa, they don't become sad. They feel not content because of reasons. And while he was contemplating on the reasons, the Lord Sage Narada came there and asked if there is a problem with the great Mahatmas. Always there is another Mahatma who will come there and who will point out the reason as to why the reason and what the reason of their discontentment is. So when Sage Narada came there, Vyasa was sitting there brooding. So Narada asked him, so what happened to Vyasa? So Vyasa says, oh, revered sage, I've written all these things, but I still don't feel content after writing all the great epics and codifying the Vedas. So Narada says, that he says that for composing the Mahabharata, a unique and encyclopedic work dealing with all the purusharthas, the ultimate values of life, you must be considered as one with mastery of dharma. In its practical and the theoretical aspects, you have completely mastered the eternal Veda and propagated it amongst your disciples. Still, how is it that you look frustrated and grieving? So Vyasa says to Narada, I am aware that I have all these excellences that you have referred to, but still I feel no joy or satisfaction within. And the cause is not very clear to me. You are the son of Brahma and possessed of infinite knowledge. And tell me the cause of my sorrow. You are endowed with the knowledge of the subtlest and most of the secret of the things. And so Vyasa goes to talk about Narada and praise Narada in different ways. And then Narada says, so he says, you have not adequately described the glory of the Supreme Lord. I consider as imperfect all those philosophies which fail to please the Lord because of their lack of devotional exuberance, which alone can give satisfaction to him. You have not expounded the greatness of Vasudeva. So as I said, here it is different names are said, Vasudeva, Krishna, and Vishnu. So all these names are, and the Supreme God. So all these names are Lord, are given. The different names are given to the same and one consciousness. So he says, you have not given, expounded the greatness of Vasudeva with the exhaustiveness with which you have treated the Vedic rites and the fourfold end of human life consisting of dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. So you have described all these things in life. So there was one question which one of the devotees had asked, about these four values or the virtues of life, fourfold virtues of life, which is dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. And the question was, is there something greater than anything else? Funny thing was today, Amma was also asking this question to all her small kids. And so, of course, what is the greatest of all these things? So, moksha is the goal. And then comes dharma. Dharma is to reach the goal. And then artha and kama are the things that come along with us, that comes with our body, and this world that is given to us. So, in one sense, all our lives are for reaching the goal, which is moksha, realization. And so the all the other aspects, that is namely the dharma, artha, and kama, are only the virtues which support this goal, and should be like that. So artha, as I was saying, dharma is righteousness, artha is wealth acquired either through our progeny or through the material wealth, and kama is desires, and moksha, of course, is a liberation. So when we talk about this, we have to understand that we cannot live in this world without any one of this. That is the beauty about it. So it's like the four legs of a cot, of a bed. So suppose one leg is not there. So what will happen if you lie down on that bed? You'll be slanting to one side or you'll fall down. So similarly, if one of them does not support our life, which is in this world, it will not have its fullest meaning. And not only that, we cannot live in this world without all four of these. Because if we do not have artha, that is wealth, we need money or we need wealth for while we are living in this world. We cannot say, oh, I don't need it. I just can live without wealth. So nobody has done that except a few, we can say the realized souls who have lived in this world without any wealth. But the other one is also, without wealth, we cannot also sit quietly. So it also gives certain amount of contentment for us in our lives. And it gives us security, right? And only if you have enough wealth can you say that, oh, your 401k is okay now, so now I can retire and I can go to the ashram or I can do something. So that is artha. And kama is desire. And when we talk about kama, there is also desire which is propelled by the vasanas inside our mind. And these vasanas, actually, we can not say that these vasanas are bad or good. They are neither bad or good, but we definitely need them. And as long as the vasanas are our control, then it's not a problem. It's just like the Lord Ganesha sitting on the mouse. What if the mouse was sitting on Lord Ganesha? So you just imagine that. Start chewing his ears or, start biting him. So similarly, if we have desires which is more than what we should have, or desires which are not good for us, again, what kind of desires, you might ask? So again, think about moksha. So that also by itself is the greatest desire. The desire for moksha, for liberation. And that ultimately, it takes away all the other small desires. It's just like when the small rivers come and join the ocean. What happens to the small rivers? They all become the ocean. So similarly, when these small desires come and merge in the Supreme Consciousness, they merge into it and they disappear. And so in one sense, so how would we lead a life with the proper desire? That is what is determined by dharma. Dharma determines what you should do, in what situation you should do, and how you should do, and where you are, and depends upon a lot of factors. So you must have heard about so many of these stories which Amma has said. And one of the stories I would say is when there were the test for the two princes. One was Yudhishthira, the other one was Duryodhana. And the test was when they were sitting in the court, 4 people were brought into the court. And one of the ministers told them that both of them are sitting there with the king, and then Bhishma and everybody, their gurus were all sitting there. So Bhishma was wanted Dhritarashtra, who is Duryodhana's father, to know that Yudhishthira is much more capable than Duryodhana. So he actually had devised this test. And so they brought all 4 of these people. So the minister said that these 4 people have murdered a person. That is the crime they have committed. So Bhishma asked first Duryodhana, what should we do? What punishment would you give to all of them? So Duryodhana said, since they killed a person, they all should be just, given capital punishment. They all should be killed. So next, Bhishma asked Yudhishthira, what will you recommend? What punishment will you recommend? So Yudhishthira said, look, I want to know one thing. First of all, I want to know in which caste do they belong to. So they said the one is a Shudra, the lowest caste, then other one is a Vaishya, third one is Kshatriya, and fourth one is a Brahmana. So Yudhishthira said the first one, that is Shudra, because the lowest caste means he does not have enough knowledge about dharma. He should be given like 40 beatings and let go. So then they said, how about the Vaishya? So give him 60, because he should be much more knowledgeable than the Shudra. And then Bhishma asked, what about the Kshatriya? Kshatriya, he said, should be given capital punishment, because he is the one who is supposed to support everyone and take care of their security. And now, instead of taking care of their security, he has killed them, so he should be punished accordingly. So then Bhishma asked, what about the fourth one? Who is a Brahmin? So Yudhishthira said, I am a Kshatriya myself. So I cannot determine the punishment for a Brahmin, because he is a higher caste. So a Brahmin or a self-realized soul should determine what the punishment for that person should be. And I cannot determine that. So you see, one of the things, the subtlety of dharma. The same action has been performed by 4 different people, and according to their 4 castes, Yudhishthira is saying that, look, these 4 people should also be given 4 different types of punishment. And so it changes from place to place, from time to time. Dharma is very subtle. So, but what happens is, when we are working for moksha or for liberation, we don't have to worry about it. Because if our eyes, if our goal, if our intent is on moksha, or the desire for liberation, then, dharma, we will act according to the proper dharma in every situation. And that's what Narada says also here. Narada says the same thing, to Lord Vyasa. And sage Vyasa, he says, in your Mahabharata, you have described so much of dharma. and what a woman should do, a man should do, a soldier should do, a husband, wife, son, father, grandfather, all these things you have described. But look, if a person's mind is always reveling in the Lord, which is in the highest plane, won't he perform the right dharma? Won't he perform the right action? So why do you need to teach them dharma? Their mind will always be pure and sanctified by the name of the Lord. So they will be performing the right dharma. So don't worry about talking about dharma. Talk only about the Lord. So, and he says, if you write a beautiful literary work and that nowhere describe the sanctifying glory of the Lord, which is eschewed by the holy spiritual swans, which means the Paramahamsas, means the greatest ones, who are ever accustomed to sport in the lake of Satchidananda alone, they discard such compositions, considering them only as dirty mud puddles fit for the bath of the crows of sensual worldlings. So you just see the usage of these words. So it's like crows taking a bath. So the great swans won't come there. And literary compositions which are characterized by the presence of words indicating divine attributes and glory destroy the sins and evil tendencies of people, even if there are mistakes in every one of their lines. Holy men hear the exposition of such texts and they themselves expound and sing them. So they say, even if you are, it doesn't matter whether you are reading Bhagavad Gita or one of these texts properly or improperly. Even if you are saying, one of the lines in Bhagavad Gita, and you are imbibing, and you are saying, yada hi dha arma, and like that, if you go, yada hi dharmasya, so instead of saying that, you're saying yada hi dharma sya, and if you're making mistakes, but if your intent is on glorifying, on your mind is on the Lord, even if you make mistakes, it's okay. Because the intent is the most important, and what happens is it destroys the sins and evil tendencies of people, even if there are mistakes. So he says, the exposition of such texts and themselves, expound and sing them, and if you do that, holy men will come there. Otherwise, who will be there? Only crows. So he's saying, if you do not praise, put all the praises of Lord there in the text, the holy swans are not going to come. There might be thousands of people. They might be happy that you're joking and you're talking about all these worldly subjects, but what happens? You won't have any great men listening to you. But what happens if you are talking about this constantly? There may be only 15 people, but those 15 people will be of the highest order. And so the question is whether you want to please the masses or do you want to do the duty needed for these 15 people or 20 people. So he's saying, knowledge, sage Narada says, knowledge characterized by purity does not shine with dazzling brilliance if it is devoid of the fervor of devotion to the Supreme Being. Therefore, O high-souled one, you are endowed with unerring insight, famed for your holiness, ever devoted to truth and established in sacred vows, and do through samadhi recall the memories of the wonderful deeds of the sportive Lord, and expound them the same for the salvation of all mankind. So he gives the order. Just write. Write about the holiness and the great, the Leelas of the divine. And so he says, only rare souls who have attained to the highest purity of being can take to the life of absolute renunciation prescribed in the Upanishads and realize the supernal bliss of the infinite. Therefore, reveal for the benefit of the common man who is subject to the gunas of Prakriti and thereby has forgotten his highest nature, the spiritual activities of the Supreme Being through his cosmic manifestation. So, what he's saying is, see, one of the things is, it is for a common man to follow the principles that has been described in Upanishads is very difficult, because first of all, he cannot understand it. And secondly, even if he understands it, he cannot follow it and he cannot put it into practice. So he's saying, whereas if you just talk about the bhakti aspect, the devotional aspect, they can just even listen and then they will benefit. And so the other thing is saying that a man who has abandoned his swadharma for pursuing the path of devotion to Hari, even if he fails to attain perfection in that path immediately, does not sustain any fall. So he's saying that even if you, what happens if you are doing, you're not fulfilling his duty as per all the ordinance of the scriptures, and if you fail to do that, as long as you are trying to reach the path of moksha, of liberation, you will never fall. That is giving a promise. And so he says, a person devoted to the Lord will never be caught up in the repetitive process of samsara, like one devoted to the Vedic rites and desire-prompted activities. So even a man who is following the Vedic rites, you can think about it. Just think about it. He's doing Vedic rites every day. And then what happens? He cannot let go of that. And he falls for that. And even when he is born, he is also, because of all the karmas that he has done, he has to go through it again, and because of the vasanas, he has to keep doing those. So whereas he is saying, one who is actually listening to the glory of the Lord, he automatically, his mind gets cleansed. So he says, I have spoken, all these truths are well known to you, but I have spoken briefly about them only to draw your attention towards them. So you might ask this question. There was a question that was asked one time, like when two realized souls talk to each other. One is giving a question, putting this question to the other one, and the realized soul is answering. So one is acting as a disciple, the other one is acting like a teacher, a guru. So what is the point of that? So there is one of the situations like this in Ramayana, where Vasishtha is teaching Rama. And Rama was a great soul. And he was born realized. And there was no need for him to teach. So when one great saint was sitting, and he usually, a great realized master was sitting, and he usually had many scholars come there. Sometimes they would start a discussion. Sometimes they would argue with each other. And they would want to clear their doubts. So right in front of the great soul, the great saint. So they were asking this question. They were arguing amongst them whether Vasishtha was teaching the Rama who is realized, or the Rama who pretends to be realized or pretends to be ignorant.
So this is the question, and this is the argument. The argument is going on. And finally, they cannot come to a conclusion as to what it is. So finally, they go to the great saint and ask them, so is this teaching by Vasishtha for Rama who is realized, or for the Rama who is not realized? Or is it for Vasishtha himself, so that Vasishtha could remember all these things? So the great saint says, stupid fellows, this is not for Rama, this is not for Vasishtha, it is for you. These teachings are for you only. So they are expounding as if they are feigning to be ignorant. And when these teachings are coming out, these teachings are for us. So it's not that here that Lord Vyasa did not know about it. And it's not that Sage Narada wanted to remind Lord Vyasa. That's why he's saying, you already know all these things, but why is this for? It is for us. Not for Sage Vyasa, not for Sage Narada. So he's saying this teaching is actually for us. So he says, great men have established that the supreme imperishable consummation of all spiritual disciplines, be it austerities, scriptural study, sacrifices, japa, gifts, or discrimination, consist in the development of keen interest in contemplation and exposition of the glories and attributes of the exalted being. So he's saying it's the glories, when you say the exposition of the glories and the attributes of the exalted beings, it means bhakti, right? Devotion. And so he's saying that if all these things are not for the sake of bhakti or developing devotion, then throw it away. So if you are doing austerities, and if you're doing scriptural study, and if you're doing sacrifices, you're doing japa, you're doing gifts and discrimination. And so if it is austerities, some people do austerities, why? Because they want to get siddhis. So then it's no use. Scriptural study, some people want to show that they are so knowledgeable. They are pandits. So then throw it away. And sacrifices, you want to earn so much punya by doing sacrifices, and throw it away. And japa, why are you doing japa? And if the mind does not develop devotion, then throw it away. Means it's not throwing it away, but you should continue, but this is the point. So you have to understand this is the main point of why we are doing all these spiritual practices, to increase our devotion to the Supreme Consciousness or to Amma. So if we do not develop these things, mind you, that is the first step where you can understand that there is no development or no progress in your spiritual path. So if you are progressing, that means your bhakti or your devotion to Amma will be slowly and slowly increasing. And then Narada says, in his previous birth, he is saying that, I was born as the son of a maid servant in a community of Vedic ritualists. So Narada here is telling about his own biography, because again, it's not for Vyasa to know, it's for us to know. And what he did in his previous lives so that he could become a sage like this. So the point is, he also wants us also to become like him. And so that's why he's narrating his story. And so he said, I was therefore from boyhood engaged in attending on yogis who gathered at the place of Chaturmasya, that is the retreat during the 4 months. So every 4 months, every year, in a year, every 4 months, the sannyasins or the great people gather in a place, and then they don't travel, and then they keep reading scriptures, doing their spiritual practices. So this is this is one of the things that all the sannyasins do in India. And so those holy men, though even-minded in their outlook, were mightily pleased with my services, especially seeing, though I was a mere boy, was devoid of all fickleness and boyish playfulness, was disciplined and brief spoken. So at that time he was only 5 years old. So what happened was Narada was born to his mother, who was a maid servant. So in his the first birth he is talking about. And so he was only 4 or 5 years old. And then what happened was his mother used to take him wherever she would go, because he's such a small kid and you cannot leave the kid alone in home. So his mother was given the assignment of looking after the holy men and cleaning their places and all these things. So she took Narada with her. And what happened was the boy, as he was saying, when the boy was put in a place, he would just sit quietly. He would not play or do all sorts of foolishness or naughty behavior, just like the other children. So what happened was the holy men, and his mother also had told him that he should behave properly and showed him how to behave properly in front of holy men. So he would obey his mother and give enough respect to the holy men. And what he would do was he would not speak too much to them, and he would also help them, attend to them. And so what happened was, by serving this holy man, he said, I developed a taste for devotional life, which these holy men followed. So what happened is, you have to understand where you are and how you place yourself in the company of whom is very important. So that determines the nature of your mind. Suppose you go and sit in a mall. See, you can watch your mind. So the mind is running after all these objects, and you're thinking about what is there in the mall, what should I buy next. And suppose you go and sit in a theater watching a movie. So the mind is always reacting to all the scenes in the movie. So according to the place, the mind's reaction is different. So the most important thing, as he's saying, that when he was placed amongst these holy men, one of the greatest blessings was that he could hear every day the attractive recitals of Sri Krishna's life and actions. So earlier, what was the name? Vasudeva. So here it's Sri Krishna. So you'd see he gives different names. So, but it's the same person. But you have to understand, at that time Sri Krishna was not even born. So, but Sri Krishna here represents the Supreme Lord, the consciousness. So he's saying that I developed this delight in the Lord. Mind would never disengage itself from Him or endearing glory. So he said what happened is, listening continuously all through the spring and rainy season, at the 3 sandhyas, means in the dusk of the day, to the recitals of this Lord's sanctifying glory by these holy men, there sprang up in me that powerful devotion which obliterates all traces of tamas and rajas. So this is what happens when you listen to the glories of the Lord, means the stories of the Lord. The tamas and rajas is slowly washed away. So even if you are sleeping and listening to the stories, it doesn't matter. Slowly and slowly, what happens is, as you keep on hearing the stories, what happens is your mind becomes more and more clear to when you come to such a point. And it's said that even if you go and sleep in a place where Bhagavatam is chanted, that's much better than going and sleeping in a cinema hall. You know why? Because those vibrations are unknowingly entering into you, even you are sleeping. But what happens is, if you go and sit in the cinema hall or in a place where there is worldly activities, those vibrations are also going. And so, but it's better that you go and sit in a place where Bhagavatam is chanted, but that does not mean you should go to sleep when you meditate or when you hear Bhagavatam. But the fact is, even if you are not prepared enough, and if your mind is going into tamas, slowly it will start rejuvenating. That is the point. So he's saying that what happened was, when dispersing after the Chaturmasya period, what happened was, one day, one of the holy men, the sannyasins, called him. And they were sitting and eating. So the boy would just stand and go and stand in a corner and wait very patiently till they would finish their food. So he was standing, which is Narada, who was standing in a corner, when one of the holy men called him and said, "Come, my child, come and sit near me." And he was eating the food, and he took a ball of the prasad and gave it to Narada. And when Narada put it inside his mouth, he was just transported. And so what happened was, he said that the moment he ate that prasad, the transcendent knowledge of the Supreme Divine, which he himself had revealed to them, was imparted to me. So he experienced that. And for though a boy, they found in me a fit recipient, as I was loving, humble, sinless, attentive, self-controlled, and obedient. So they're giving all the characteristics of a seeker. What all are there? Loving, humble, sinless, attentive, self-controlled, and obedient. And by that knowledge, I was enabled to obtain the grace of the Maya of Vasudeva, the omniscient and the omnipotent Lord, by which the jiva attains to his being. So he says, now he's expounding the glory of karma blended with bhakti. So he says, "O holy men, what is implied by this story of mine is that karma, that is work, dedicated to the Supreme Person, which is the Lord, who is the master of the worlds and all-comprehending being, tends to destroy the threefold miseries of man." So the threefold miseries, as I said, like earlier, Tabat Traya Vinasham, that is three types. One is the Adi Bhaudika, Adi Daiviga, and Adhyatmika. This is Adi Bhaudika means which is brought about by the world in which we live, either from the government, or the government suddenly says you have to pay like $5,000 tax, and out of the blue it comes like that, slams you, or the government says, you have to do this within such and such period, otherwise you will be in prison. So all these things can come. So that is, or from your children, from your husband or your wife. So all these things. And the second one is Adi Daiviga, which is the mental problems that come to us. So by our vasanas and by our tendencies. So there will be happiness, sadness, then there will be anger, and all these things that follow that. And the third one, Adhyatmika, which is what happens is the Adhyatmikam is the word that where it will be our spiritual, so say the acts of spirituality. So these three ones are caused. This he's saying these three ones, karma, which is the cause of bondage, can liberate men. Like ghee, which cause disease in men, which when taken by themselves do not do so. And when they are, so when, see, like when you take ghee, sometimes people who cannot digest ghee will not be able to take ghee. But what happens when you put herbs in it? So the same ghee, when you put herbs, then what happens is, if you take that, if you swallow it, that becomes medicine. So it's like this. So he's saying, even though karma is the cause of bondage for man preoccupied with it, the same karma, when dedicated to the Lord, all becomes a potent power to destroy all tendencies and take him Godward. And whatever work man performs in dedication to and for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, such karma goes to generate knowledge, jnana, combined with bhakti. So when work is done according to the teaching of the Lord, as contained in the Gita, for example, his names and excellences are always remembered simultaneously with the karma. So how? So those karmas, what happens is when you dedicate them, so when you dedicate them to the Lord, or when it is told to you by your guru, when your guru asks you to do that karma becomes, whatever karma it be, let it be the worst karma, that karma becomes sanctifying. It becomes cleansing to your mind. That's what he's saying. And Amma says the example of Daksha and Arjuna, right? And Daksha started his yajna. And it was a very, the yajna, as you know, is a fire ritual. So it was to appease all the gods. But one thing he did not do was to appease Shiva, right? So Shiva came there, and because of his Daksha's ego, he was killed by Lord Shiva. And so the yajna turned into a war. Whereas Arjuna, who was asked to by Lord Krishna to fight against his gurus and his relatives and his grandsires, so the war became a yajna. Because of who? Because of Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna asked him to do that. So that's what Amma says, when Daksha's yajna became a war and Arjuna's war became a yajna. So that is why here what Lord Narada is saying, that any karma, any action, though it is will be binding us to the earth, and but it will liberate you, provided you do it in the name of the Lord. So they say, even if you, like cleaning the ashram, that's why Amma says, if you do anything in the ashram, in the name of Amma, and in the name of your guru, or in the name of Lord, that same action, though it might be a cause of bondage, will become a cause of liberation. So even if you take a garbage and dump it from here to there, I remember in the olden days, since we did not have enough karma yoga to do, Amma would ask us, the ashram was not so big that time. So there was not so much seva also. There was enough seva for maybe like 15 to 20 of us. But we were like 40 or 50 of us. So we did not have enough sevas. So what Amma devised something. So every night she would come at least exactly around 11:30. That's the time when we go to sleep. And the bell would ring, and Amma would, when we hear the bell, Amma would come out, and we know Amma is out, so we will all run. And then what happens is Amma herself would take the sand which was brought, and during that time the construction of the Kali temple and so much of other things were going on. So she would ask us to take the sand from one sand and stones and bricks and all these things, take it from one place to another place. So the whole night we'll be working. And so the next day, Amma will come back, and then ask us to put it back in the same place that we took it from yesterday, or near it. And we'll be just doing the same thing. But what happened was, why we did it, one of the reasons why we did it, because, in the end, Amma would come and give us a few pieces of banana chips and and coffee, black coffee. So that was really, the reason why we did karma, not because we had so much devotion. So, but still, I would say that because Amma asked us to do it, those karmas, though it should have been tying us to this world, was a release. So what here he is saying is that, even though if karma, when we do it in the world, and for us, which is selfish, then those selfish karmas will go back and make us bound to the world. But if karma is done to the Supreme Lord, or in the name of the Supreme Lord, that karma goes to generate knowledge, jnana, combined with bhakti. So he says that when what happened was, when he was doing this, what happened was he was slowly, getting rid of all his tendencies. And he says, "Oh, you are the master of scriptures. Engage yourself in the description of these unique glories, which alone can satisfy the question of spiritual aspirants. Proclaim that there is no other panacea for the woes with which men are stricken again and again in this worldly existence." So he says that in your book, please write this. So you just keep writing, repeating the names and the glory of the Lord. And even if men do not understand, even if they are just reading it without proper understanding, and even if you do that, definitely what will happen is that the people who are striving to become independent, and they will read this, and it will definitely benefit them. So giving this blessing to Vyasa, and again, as I said, it's not that Lord Sage Vyasa did not know these things, but all these things are expounded for our sake, and not for Sage Narada's sake, nor for Sage Vyasa's sake. So we have to understand that. So we continue with the story of Sage Narada in the next class. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Hari Om. So we'll sing a few bhajans now. First one is volume 2, page 107. Jai Sharade Ma or Amriteshwari Ma. Volume 2, page 107. Amriteshwari Ma, Amriteshwari Ma, Amriteshwari Ma. Amriteshwari Ma, अमृतेश्वरी माँ,
अमृतेश्वरी माँ, अमृतेश्वरी माँ।
अज्ञान दासे हमें पार दे माँ, अज्ञान दासे हमें पार दे माँ। अमृतेश्वरी माँ, अमृतेश्वरी माँ, अज्ञान दासे हमें पार दे माँ।
अमृतेश्वरी माँ, अमृतेश्वरी माँ,
अज्ञानता से हमें पार दे माँ।
तू स्वर्ग की देवी हो, संगीत तुझसे, हर शब्द तेरा है, हर गीत तुझसे।
सारी देवी ओ संगीत तुझसे, हर शब्द तेरा, हर गीत तुझसे।
हम है अकेले, हम है अधूरे,
हम हैं अकेले, हम हैं अधूरे।
तेरी शरण में हमें प्यार दे माँ।
तेरी शरण में हमें प्यार दे माँ।
अमृतेश्वरी माँ, अमृतेश्वरी माँ, अज्ञान दासे
पार दे माँ।
मुनियों ने समझी, गुणियों ने जानी, वेदों की भाषा, पुराणों की वाणी।
मुनियों ने समझी, गुणियों ने जानी, वेदों की भाषा, पुराणों की वाणी।
हम है क्या समझे, हम है क्या जाने, विद्या का हमको अधिकार दे माँ। हम है क्या समझे, हम है क्या जाने,
विद्या का अधिकार दे माँ।
तू श्वेत वर्णी देवों की देवी, हाथों में वीणा, गले में सुमाला।
तू श्वेत वर्णी देवों की देवी, हाथों में वीणा, गले में सुमाला।
मन से हमारे मिठा दे अंधेरा, हमको झालों का संसार दे माँ। मन से हमारे
बेताए दे हमको जलों का संसार दे माँ।
अमृतेश्वरी माँ, अमृतेश्वरी माँ, अज्ञान दासे हमें पार दे माँ।
अमृतेश्वरी माँ, अमृतेश्वरी माँ, अज्ञान से हमें पार दे माँ।
अज्ञान दासे हमें पार दे माँ।
अज्ञान से हमें पार दे माँ।
अज्ञान दासे हमें पार दे माँ।
अज्ञान से हमें पार दे माँ।
The next song is volume 5, page 72, volume 5. Jai 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 Gananada.
जय 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 गणनाथ गजानन कष्ट हरो हमारा।
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 रिद्धि सिद्धि के तुम हो स्वामी, प्रेम भक्ति के दादा।
रिद्धि सिद्धि के तुम हो स्वामी, प्रेम भक्ति के दाता।
अंधकार में डूबे मन को,
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 कर दो अब उजियारा। अंधकार में
डूबे मन को, कर दो अब
उजियारा। तुझको मेरा पहला वंदन,
तुझको मेरा पहला वंदन,
तुझको मेरा पहला वंदन।
तुझको मेरा पहला वंदन।
बार बार प्रणाम गजानन, बार बार प्रणाम। तुझको मेरा पहला वंदन, बार बार प्रणाम गजानन, बार बार प्रणाम। जय 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 गणनाथ गजानन कष्ट हरो हमारा।
जय 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 गणनाथ गजानन कष्ट हरो हमारा।
रूप तेरा है कितना प्यारा, माँ पार्वती के बाला।
रूप तेरा कितना प्यारा, माँ पार्वती के बाला।
माना मात पिता जग सारा,
माना माता पिता जग सारा।
माना मात पिता जग सारा।
माना माता पिता जग सारा।
परम ज्ञान फल पाया, माना मात
पिता जग सारा।
परम ज्ञान फल पाया। गीत पे मेरे नाचो गणपति
गीत पेरे में नाचो गणपति
गीत पे मेरे नाचो गणपति
गीत पे मेरे नाचो गणपति
भक्त का दिल भर जाए गजानन भक्त का दिल भर जाए गीत पे मेरे नाचो गणपति
भक्त का दिल भर जाए गजानन भक्त का दिल भर जाए
जय 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 गणनाथ गजानन कष्ट हरो हमारा
जय 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 गणनाथ गजानन कष्ट हरो हमारा
गणपति कष्ट हरो हमारा गणपति कष्ट हरो हमारा कष्ट हरो हमारा
Volume 4, page 54.
गोविंद गोपाला हरि हरि गोविंद गोपाला
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 गाओ गाओ हरि गुण गाओ जय हरि गोपाला
गावो गावो हरि गुण गावो जय हरि गोपाला
Hari Hari Govinda Gopala.
Govinda Gopala, Hari Hari Govinda Gopala.
Madhav Gopala, Hari Hari Mohan Gopala.
Madhava Gopala, Hari Hari Mohan Gopala.
Madhav Gopala, Hari Hari Mohan Gopala.
Madhava Gopala, Hari Hari Mohan Gopala.
प्रेम से बोलो सब मिल बोलो जय हरि गोपाला.
प्रेम से बोलो सब मिल बोलो जय हरि
गोविंद हरि हरि गोपाल हरि हरि.
गोविंद हरि हरि गोपाल हरि हरि
गोविंद हरि हरि गोपाल हरि हरि.
गोविंद हरि हरि
गोविंद हरि हरि गोपाल हरि हरि. गोविंद हरि हरि गोपाल हरि हरि.
गोविंद गोपाल हरि हरि गोविंद गोपाल
गोविंद गोपाल हरि हरि गोविंद गोपाल. मधुर मधुर है मधुर मधुर तेरा नाम गोपाला.
मधुर मधुर हे मधुर मधुर तेरा नाम गोपाला.
मधुर मधुर है मधुर मधुर तेरा नाम गोपाला.
मधुर मधुर हे मधुर मधुर तेरा नाम गोपाला.
प्रेम से बोलो सब मिल बोलो जय हरि गोपाला.
प्रेम से बोलो सब मिल बोलो जय हरि गोपाला.
गोविंद हरि हरि गोपाल हरि हरि. गोविंद हरि हरि गोपाल हरि हरि. गोविंद हरि हरि गोपाल हरि हरि. गोविंद हरि हरि गोपाल
हरि हरि
गोविंद हरि हरि गोपाल हरि हरि. गोविंद हरि हरि गोपाल हरि हरि.
गोविंद
हरि हरि गोपाल हरि हरि.
गोविंद हरि हरि गोपाल हरि हरि.
गोविंद गोपाल हरि हरि गोविंद गोपाल.
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 गाओ गाओ हरि गुण गाओ जय हरि गोपाल.
गाओ गाओ हरि गुण गाओ जय हरि गोपाल.
गोविंद हरि हरि गोपाल हरि हरि. गोविंद हरि हरि गोपाल हरि हरि.
गोविंद हरि हरि गोपाल हरि हरि. गोविंद हरि हरि गोपाल हरि हरि.
गोविंद हरि हरि गोपाल हरि हरि. गोविंद हरि हरि गोपाल हरि हरि.
गोविंद हरि हरि गोपाल हरि हरि. गोविंद हरि हरि गोपाल
Govinda Hari Hari Gopala Hari Hari
Govinda
Hari Hari Gopala Hari Hari Govinda Hari Hari Gopala Hari Hari. Volume 3, page 84. Jaya Jaya Devi Daya Lahari. 84, Volume 3. Jaya Jaya Devi Daya Lahari. Jaya Jaya Devi Daya Lahari. Amritapureshwari Palayama. Amritapureshwari Palayama. Jaya Jaya Devi Daya Lahari. Amritapureshwari Palayama. Amritapureshwari Palayama. Amale Kamala Sanasahite. Amale Kamala Sanasahite. Albhuda Charide Palayama. Albhuda Charide Palayama. Chaturmukha Bhari Mampahi. Chaturmukha Bhari Mampahi. Vani Saraswati Valayama. Vani Saraswati Vagdevi. Jaya Jaya Devi Daya Lahari. Jaya Jaya Devi Daya Lahari. Amritapureshwari Palayama. Amritapureshwari Palayama. Jaya Jaya Devi Daya Lahari. Jaya Jaya Devi Daya Lahari. Amritapureshwari Palayama. Amale Kamala Sanasahite. Albhuda Charide Palayama. Chaturmukha Bhari Mampahi. पाहि
चतुर्मुखवाणी मां पाहि
वाणी सरस्वती वाग्देवी
वाणी सरस्वती वाग्देवी
वाणी सरस्वती वाग्देवी
वाणी सरस्वती वाग्देवी
जय जय देवी दयाल हरि
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 अमृतपुरेश्वरी वालयमा
अमृतपुरेश्वरि बालय मां
अमृतपुरेश्वरी वालयमा
अमृतपुरेश्वरि बालय मां
जय जय देवी दयाल हरि
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 दयाल हरि
दयाल हरि
दयाल हरि
दयाल
दयाल
हरि
हरि दयाल हरि दयाल हरि दयाल हरि दयाल हरि जय जय देवी 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 दयाल हरि अमृतपुरेश्वरी पालय मां जय जय देवी दयाल हरि अमृतेश्वरी मङ्गलं प्रणमद मुक्तिप्रदे मङ्गलं भुवनेश्वरी मङ्गलं सुखदिना एकाश्रये मङ्गलम् अमृतेश्वरी मङ्गलं प्रणमदा मुक्तिप्रदे मङ्गलं भुवनेश्वरी मङ्गलं सुकृतिना एकाश्रये मङ्गलम् हृदयेश्वरी मङ्गलं हृदिलसत्तेजोर्मयी मङ्गलम् मृदुभाषिणी मङ्गलं विजयदा प्रेमाकृते मङ्गलं विजयदा प्रेमाकृते मङ्गलं विजयदा प्रेमाकृते मङ्गलम् जननी वन्दे अमृतानन्दमयी मंगलारती माधव भवानी अमृतानन्दमयी माता अमृतानन्दमयी जनमन निज सुखदायिनी माता अमृतानन्दमयी मंगलकारिणी वन्दे जननी अमृतानन्दमयी माता अमृतानन्दमयी सकलागमनिगमादिषु चरिते अमृतानन्दमयी निखिलमयहर जननी वन्दे अमृतानन्दमयी माता अमृतानन्दमयी प्रेमरसामृत वर्षिणी माता अमृतानन्दमयी प्रेमभक्ति सन्द्रायिनी माता अमृतानन्दमयी माता अमृतानन्दमयी शमदमदायिनी मनलयकारिणी अमृतानन्दमयी सददं मम हृदि वसदा देवी अमृतानन्दमयी माता अमृतानन्दमयी पतितोद्धार निरन्तर हृदये अमृतानन्दमयी परमहंस पदनिलये देवी अमृतानन्दमयी माता अमृतानन्दमयी हे जननी जनि मरण निवारिणि अमृतानन्दमयी हे सृगजन परिपालिनि जयदा अमृतानन्दमयी माता अमृतानन्दमयी सुरजन भूजित जय जगदम्बा अमृतानन्दमयी सहज समाधिषु धन्ये देवी अमृतानन्दमयी माता अमृतानन्दमयी माता अमृतानन्दमयी माता अमृतानन्दमयी ॐ जय जय जगजननी वन्दे अमृतानन्दमयी मंगल आरती माता भवानी अमृतानन्दमयी माता अमृतानन्दमयी माता अमृतानन्दमयी। जय बोलो सद्गुरु माता अमृतानंदमयी देवी की। ओम असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ लोका समस्ता सुखिनो भवन्तु लोका समस्ता सुखिनो भवन्तु लोका समस्ता सुखिनो भवन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ